Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We are going to, or I should say, I'm going to call this January meeting to order. Hello. Hello. Happy New Year to everyone. We can still say that. We have a full agenda tonight, but I first just want to, I think I said this at the December meeting, but Commissioner Howe resigned. So just for the record, all of us are the remaining commissioners that are still on the commission are present. I do know that council is moving forward with assessing candidates for our 7th seat. So hopefully I know that they were doing interviews, I believe. So hopefully we'll have that soon. Hold on a second. We did have minutes from the December meeting. Were there any changes, edits, notes? Nope. Okay, so please have staff enter the minutes from the December meeting into the record. And then we have, as customary in January, the election of chair and vice chair, which is always slightly an awkward moment for me. But Lee, can you walk us through, because I think I preside over it, and then we take nominations, and then we vote to close the floor, and then we vote on the nominated person.
That's right. I think
Okay.
that's a fair way to proceed.
Okay. So are there any nominations from the commissioners for the position of chair?
I nominate our current chair, Jessica Cohen, to be chair in 2025.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. And then just Lee, sorry, another procedural note. We'll vote on that, and then I ask if there are other nominations, or do I ask now if there are any other nominations?
I think I would ask now if there.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for this position? Okay. Seeing none, we will take a vote. All in favor of electing me chair for the coming year, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any abstentions or no? Nays? No. Okay. So thank you all. I appreciate the vote of confidence, the literal vote of confidence. So thank you. That's true. And then another person would have to do it. This is true. Okay, so we'll continue on to the position of vice chair. Are there nominations for the position of vice chair?
I nominate Michael Gaynor to continue in his position as vice chair.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
That was very emphatic. Any other seconded? Any other nominations for the position of vice chair? No. Seeing none, let's take a vote. All in favor of Mike Gaynor for vice chair of the Planning Commission, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, that's good. I voted for myself also. Okay, duly noted. And so with that, it's unanimous. Congratulations. And we are set for the coming year. All right, so I think we have taken care of all of our procedural business. The next thing we will do is have our assistant law director swear in our staff or anyone who's going to be speaking tonight on any of the cases. So if you could please stand if you're able, and then we'll swear you in. Yep.
Do you swear or affirm to testify the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So on our agenda, we have the case project number 24-32 of 960 Caledonia. This was the case that we had reviewed last month in December before the holidays. I do want to note, and just staff, confirm as I'm going along, but we do have updated materials that we all received on this case. And then I understand that, and I had the email. Oh, here it is. My computer is covering it. I do understand that we just received some additional information. Hold on one second. Oh, that's another email we received from the public. Sorry, I'm missing something from the packet. Oh, I see. It's this, well, it's It's this one right here. It's the page, and then on the back.
It's only on the
is
chairs.
Is the
packet.
timestamp. So this is an email from the applicant at 4:42 that we have not been able to review yet in detail. But let's turn to staff to update us on where we are and help us sort through the materials that we've received, and then we will go from there. Does that sound okay, Brooke? Okay, great.
So this is project number 2432. It's continued from December, and the case will consist of a review of the applicant's conditional use permit for a possible amendment or revocation, as well as a review of the modification of parking requirements to provide only 3 on-site parking spaces where 25 are required. And again, this is the subject property. It's located on Caledonia Road, and it's the first lot north of the Caledonia and Dresden Road intersection. The property is zoned A single family, and it's surrounded by single family houses also zoned A single family in all directions. The applicant identifies the following activities as desired on-site uses: before and after school tutoring, early childhood education, senior programming, religious and political assemblies, book signings, musical, art and dance exhibitions, community meetings, lectures, community town hall meetings, and various skill, educational, arts, and music classes. The applicant states that the Caledonia Community Center may adjust the frequency of services and introduce new services and programs to meet business needs and market demand. The applicant should understand that the on-site activities are limited to those determined allowable by the conditional use permit, and that any changes to the provided services or programming require a revision to the conditional use permit that will need to be approved by the Planning Commission. The applicant would previously stated that they'd like to operate the Caledonia Community Center between the hours of 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. And the new materials we just got requested different hours. We can let the applicant speak to that. And she also stated that she would like to conduct cleaning, preparation, and other business activities before and after these hours. The applicant should describe the business activities that would be conducted before and after these hours. And the applicant currently does not have any W-2 employees on payroll, but this may change based on business needs. The applicant's architect has determined that the building's maximum capacity is 398 and that events will not exceed this number of attendees. The applicant states that multiple activities or events may take place at one time, but that management will not allow more customers in the building at one time that exceed the maximum. And the applicant expects to host about 2 to 3 activities each month. The applicant or a designated representative, which may consist of an employee or non-employee empowered by the applicant to supervise the facility, will be present at all building activities. Following events, cleaning will be performed by the applicant or a designee, which may consist of contract service providers, independent contractors, or W-2 employees. And the zoning code states that adaptive reuses can include recreational and educational programming, continuing education, after-school programs, etc. The applicant should provide information to the Planning Commission that demonstrates that an event center aligns with these permitted adaptive reuses. Planning Commission will need to find that this use is also compatible with the larger residential district. Additionally, the zoning code states that off-street parking is required in accordance with Chapter 1161, which requires this facility to have at least 25 on-street parking spaces with the larger residential district. The Planning Commission will need to modify this requirement again and find that 3 parking spaces are sufficient for these uses. And these are the standards under which conditional uses are permitted. The main area of inquiry here is that the applicant should discuss the security measures she plans to implement and discuss policies and procedures for managing disputes that may occur on site. The applicant was granted a reduction in parking in 2012 to only require 3 parking spaces where 29 are required, and the code now requires 25 for this building. The applicant has discussed ideas for managing parking, such as creating and posting parking rules for customers for the 3 on-site parking spaces, and by identifying permitted on-street parking. She's also attempting to reach an agreement with the East Cleveland School District to share the Caledonia School parking lot. Planning Commission will need to find that the 3 parking spaces along with posted parking regulations is still sufficient with the newly requested activities. And should testimony indicate the applicant's ability to operate within the parameters of the conditional use permit, planning staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the amendment to the applicant's conditional use permit and modify parking requirements to allow 3 parking spaces where 25 are required with the following conditions. The applicant is required to return to the Planning Commission for approval of any alteration or expansion to their operations. The applicant is to follow all permitting and licensing requirements of the city for all on-site uses. Hours of operation are to be limited to 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. The use will not be injurious to the enjoyment of other properties in the immediate vicinity or create a nuisance for adjacent residential properties. The applicant is to work with staff to resolve any complaints from neighbors and residents. The applicant is to adhere to all state child care requirements as required. Outside storage and display is prohibited. All servicing, processing, and storage uses must be fully enclosed. The applicant is to adhere to all regulations and permitting requirements for the sale and/or on-site consumption of alcoholic beverages. And the applicant is to submit a statement or plan within 30 days of approval, explaining how parking will be managed to be reviewed by the zoning administrator with the police department and fire inspector. Impacts on the neighboring streets, homes, and/or businesses must be minimized to the greatest extent possible. And then should testimony indicate the applicant's inability to operate within the parameters of the conditional use permit, planning staff would recommend that Planning Commission revoke the conditional use permit.
Thank you very much. So just to level set for the commission, we've had a little bit of a chance to look through. We've had a lot of the materials with the exception of the email that came today from a member of the community at 1:12 p.m. and then the email from the applicant that came today at 4:42 p.m. So those weren't able to be conveyed to us. But I do see some conflicting information that I think, we'd want the applicant to clarify. Before we do that, are there any questions for staff at this time? Nope. Okay. So Ms. Dixon, welcome back. Thank you for coming. Can I have you come up to the podium, please, if you're able? If you could say your name and your address, and then we have some questions. Is it okay? Karen to the rescue. Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. No, thank you so much. So we want to just clarify a few things. And again, to level set, we're here right now to figure out if we can grant a new conditional use permit that better represents and reflects the use of the property within the required zoning code regulations. So the biggest issue, and this came to us because of the incident, which I don't have the date offhand, but the incident that the police chief brought to the city's attention. And so in particular, security is of, concern. And I think 2 of the biggest factors that play into that are the amount of people that you're expecting to use the building at any given time and the hours of use. And those are 2 areas where there seems to be a bit of a contradiction in the materials we have. So on the hours, we have responses from you, and this is not dated, but I know it was from a couple of weeks ago, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, that the hours are going to be from 6:45 a.m. until 5:30 p.m. That was from one set of responses, but then...
Or the childcare.
Okay, but they didn't have any other...
Specifically asked about the
childcare
hours.
Okay, so then we didn't have any indication that there would be other activities at that time with different hours. And then this email that we received today is asking for hours. And I'm on number 2 of the email that was sent today. It looks like this. You have it. No, did this go to all the members up here? You should have just had it on.
This one twice.
Oh, I think we didn't get plenty of copies.
Oh.
Okay, good. So on this one, it says the hours are Monday through Thursday for events, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m., and then Friday to Sunday from 10 a.m. to midnight. So can you just help us? Can you walk us through what we're interested in is the hours of operation in totality, like morning to night, each day, and then what would be taking place during the day, what would be taking place at night?
For the childcare hours,
Everything,
quarter to
whatever you envision the uses for this property.
right, quarter to 7 to 5:30. That's the childcare hours.
7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Okay.
Nothing goes on after, during those hours, it's just childcare.
Okay.
No other events take place. That's Monday through Friday. However, maybe some Fridays there will be like a late meeting or something along those lines. Mostly Saturday and Sunday, it might be brunches. There's networking, there's tutoring that goes on. And so the earliest would be at 7. I tutor children early in the morning because I try to give them the same type of hours that they would be going to school. I think that it would be more productive. So I usually tutor from like 7 to 12. And then
7 a.m. to 12 p.m. on the weekends? Okay.
And then if there's any other activity that goes on, usually on Saturday probably would be the latest. Sunday, I'm pretty much out of there kind of early. I don't really do long hours. So basically what's been going on with the hours is pretty much the same. I'm not really a late person because I'm a very early person. So if there's meetings, and there has been some fundraisers and meetings and things of that nature, I will stay there and extend that time. I am just trying to preserve the time just in case. I'm not saying that it will happen, but I really want to know what is the latest hours. So I put to 12. If there should be a fundraiser, I do have a nonprofit as well. It's Double Hearts of Wonder. And I work with a lot of homeless foster children. So I may give like different functions to raise money for them. Pretty much I was doing that for quite a few years. The last 2 to 3 years, I haven't done that. I do Toys for Tots. And sometimes we're there late, wrapping toys and things of that nature. So I try to abide by that. But outside of that, this event that did take place, I generally don't, I'm just going to be honest, I generally don't rent to young people. They just don't seem to be very productive in caring about the community, just the building itself. So just for security purposes, I usually use Cleveland Heights Police Department. And that's generally if I don't know the people. Most of the things that happen there is that I know the people, So I still have security that I use. And
Right.
I don't know if I'm really answering the question that you want.
Well, mostly, but before we move to a different topic, because I think the concern is that all these uses are different. And Brooke, if you wouldn't mind, would you go back to the the adaptive reuse? You know what? Yes, here we go. So we're trying to figure out from our position here is can we fit you into F, which is other uses similar to A through E that are found to be compatible with the larger residential district. So it's a very open-ended thing, but even though that's open-ended through the granting of the conditional use permit, we would be able to specifically limit what uses can occur in the building, because you're giving us a number of different uses that all have very different considerations, right? Daycare and tutoring is one set of considerations of whether that falls into is compatible with a larger residential district. Nonprofit events are another type of use. A social event like the wedding that took place is a different type of use. So what we've been trying to do and with staff working with you is to pin down the types of use, the specific categories of uses. So we can make this analysis to see if we can fit into F to be able to give you, grant a new conditional, a more correct, accurate conditional use permit. And we can have the conditions of that permit reflect what's necessary for the residential neighborhood since you're in a single family district. So that's what we're trying to do. Now, I just for the commission, you know, I think I already kind of said this, but I think we're hearing from the applicant a few different uses. Do any of you have any questions to clarify that? Jessica, do you?
Am I understanding correctly that the private rentals would not be proposed?
Right. I think
Okay.
yeah, these are questions that I don't need to ask all the questions. So what Commissioner Wobig is asking is, are you stating, because it's not, we're kind of trying to sort through all the materials you sent us. Are you stating that there will or will not be private rentals for social events like a wedding?
No, I'm not stating that. I do, and I would like to continue to do repasses. Simply that repasses is very, very common, and they're not violent, you know, and they're early. They're never there late.
Okay. Well, that's an important distinction. So we appreciate you making that. The second, and I think the second question, which is connected to this, is around capacity. Because on one of the documents we have, the response says that the building has a capacity of 398 people. But then you also say in a different set of responses that the typical participants are between at maximum 25 to 30 people. So can you clarify that for us also? Because I think that's an important
Basically,
data
what
point.
I was doing is I was answering the questions as they were presented.
Sure.
Question said, how many people can the building
Yeah.
hold? I answered that.
Right. No.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're just trying to clarify, you know, like even though the building can hold 400 people.
Right.
Okay. So now maybe we can.
There's no way that I want 400 people. I'm just going to be totally honest.
Yeah.
Well, that's the only way I can be. But I don't like large crowds. COVID is still there. And I have to look out for myself. I'm basically there a lot. And I've done everything in the building to make sure that the air is purified and things of that nature. I don't try to get sick or anything like that, and I'm not trying to get anybody else sick. And I've never shut down for even COVID, and I have had no cases of COVID, not even myself, which I'm not trying to do. So no, I answered according to how I allow people to come in there.
So
I generally don't have over 50 people.
Oh, that was going to be my question. So
No, I don't do large crowds at all.
Okay. I have a question for staff on that, Brooke and Karen. With the conditional use permit, have we ever limited sizes of events, even though it's and not referred to like the occupancy, but actually put a person limit on it?
I don't think in terms of events, venues, but it's been common when we were doing daycares to say that we permitted up to a maximum number of charges that would be part of the daycare operation. So it's not totally unheard of.
Okay.
And if I can add to that.
Sure, absolutely.
My daycare is maximum 30. However, I would never reach 30 due to the fact that I take autistic children. And if anyone knows what autistic children is, I have to make sure that the safety of those children is first on my thoughts. Secondly, dealing with one is dealing with three sometimes because there's behavior and they're small. So the control is not there. I want to do, like if it's my own child, I want to make sure that I'm attentive to the needs of that. And I cannot be. I've been in the school system for 20 years. I've worked with behavior. I'm pretty good at that, but I understand behavior in autism, that, you know, it's different.
Yeah.
So I said that to say, yes, the building says my load can be 30, but I don't do that.
Brooke, would you go back to the proposed conditional use permit? Conditional use conditions at the very, I think it was at the end. Yeah. So this is what staff has proposed. If the commission is satisfied that the uses that you are proposing for the space that you want to continue fall into the letter F that we, saw on the last screen. So these are the conditions that staff has recommended to us if we're going to proceed in granting a conditional use permit. You said, and I was glad to see in the materials, that should you be adding or changing any type of use of the property, you will be coming back.
Absolutely.
Right. That's been a great outcome of the conversation we've been having since last meeting. So that's number one, that you'll return to the Planning Commission for approval of any alteration or expansion of the operation. So that means if any of these conditions are no longer, amenable to you, you would have to come back. Follow all permitting and licensing requirements. That's the housing and the building permits that we talked about last time that are separate from the conditional use permits. Hours of operation, we do recommend, we'll come back to that because I want to ask you a question on that, but we will be putting hours of operation limitation in the conditional use permit. Number 4 is, of course, that the use will not be injurious to the other property. That's what we had with the wedding, and that allows us as a city to bring any property owner right back in if there's an issue, right? I know. And then work with staff to resolve any complaints, adhere to all state childcare requirements, outside storage or display. These are all kind of low impact issues. And then adhere to all regulation and permitting requirements for alcoholic beverages. I mean, that's pretty standard. And submit a statement or a plan within 30 days about parking, because parking is always a concern. And we do, and I think we understand you have 3 spots and required 25. So we'll have to include that as a revised condition in the law department will tell us how we have to handle that for the reduction, right? If we do that will it be included in the conditional use permit, or that's a separate motion we have to make?
Are you going to handle that tonight?
I think if we're going to, then I think we should. Yeah.
All right. Let me get you an answer.
What?
Let me get you an answer in a minute.
Okay. All right. Well, we can see. And have we done, maybe I'll ask staff, have we done zoning administrator approval of parking reductions?
No, the parking reduction approval is at the Planning Commission level. This parking plan is something that we've discussed as we look forward into additional zoning amendments for all conditional use permits. We think that a parking plan, when there's not adequate on-site parking, should be part of the conditional use agenda. And this is the language that we've come up with to utilize and propose in the future. So well, that's not in the code itself now. It could be a condition should Planning Commission want to make it a condition. And what we're recommending is that the zoning administrator, working with the police department, because we don't want to cause a problem with on-street parking. And we understand that might be primarily where it will be, although the applicant has stated that she's trying to work with the school district to see if perhaps if there's a larger event, she, would have permission for folks to meet there. So there could be some multiple options that occur in that parking plan, but ultimately it would have to be approved unless we wanted to come back to Planning Commission, which we can do. Planning Commission could approve it.
I guess I'm just looking for some clarity on if we would be able to feel comfortable with granting a parking reduction without having a parking plan. So that's my question.
Yeah, ideally, we would want to have the parking plan before approving a parking reduction to assure that we're able to come to something that will work for the applicant and their needs,
right,
and then also satisfy the concerns about the greater neighborhood.
Okay.
Balance.
Now I have another question. So if we were to grant a conditional use permit tonight and retain the 25, can we do that and retain the 25 spot and then have come back for a reduction in parking? Or we can't because the current property only has 3 spots? You're welcome to.
I was going to say, I think it should be noted also that the applicant has been running, pretty much from our initial discussions to where we are now, the request and volume of activity is much reduced from what we thought we were hearing. I mean, perhaps we were hearing incorrectly, but from what she's describing now is pretty similar to what she has been doing in the past. So, from a staff's perspective, we feel somewhat comfortable, provided the applicant understands that she has to have the parking plan in place. And if we could put a date on when that has to be, and perhaps we have to get, working with her immediately.
So to be clear, staff is saying they're comfortable with the Planning Commission granting a parking reduction because it seems to be that the previous use of the property, that's been fine. But we would like to have a parking plan on file subsequent
with this condition, and that that condition needs to be met within give a time frame.
Okay.
Like a recent, a soon time frame, so that we have to work together and get this resolved, so that you know what you're doing and you can instruct folks coming to your center where they should park and how that should take place.
I noted that on the paper.
Yep.
That was sent.
And that, I think that some of that information came in tonight, so we've not had a chance
Just
to.
had it tonight.
Yeah, so some of it we've not had an opportunity to review.
Okay. All right. So now let me ask Ms. Dixon. So I think the two open questions are, one, the hours of operation. The hours of operation that staff has proposed here was based on the information that you provided, which is different from what you just emailed us. So are these hours of operation that are listed here, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., are you comfortable with that? Or do you foresee?
On the latter part of it, I would think 11:30, 12. I don't think that would be too much of a challenge for, not to say that it would happen, but to have it on there. You understand what I'm saying?
I do, but I think that makes this more difficult for us because of late hours in a residential neighborhood and allowing events later. So
Okay.
I think
That
that
is reasonable.
well, do any of the commissioners have a suggestion?
I mean,
Sure.
Do these events, which it looks like they're typically going to be on the weekend when you're going to go later. What's the attendance? Or how many people is that going to be versus what we know?
Usually, like I said, most of the events there, they really don't go over 50. It's like, and they're not like there all the time. People stop in, and like if I'm doing something like a fundraiser or something like that, a lot of people don't stay there. They show their face, they give their donations and things of that nature. I'm just saying, I'm just filling in the gap just in case. But over the 14 years, I basically haven't done anything really, really late. 9, I would say, but that might be precedent sometimes. I'm not saying like if I decide to do something and this event may run to 10, I don't want to be in trouble. You see what I'm saying?
Right, that's where we're trying to sort
Let me
this
just
out.
ask a follow-up. Let's say I'm coming to you to do a wedding there, and I'm typical of weddings that you may have done in the past.
Mhm.
50 head count, 60, 75.
Normally, like the weddings that I really have done, they're like old people. I'm well, older, seasoned. Okay, seasoned. Like even the birthdays, they're like seasoned, 90 or something along that line. They basically leave out of there before 8 o'clock, and no, I'm not trying to be disrespectful because I'm just, okay.
No disrespect.
Oh, okay.
Just saying that's what makes sense in terms of
Right.
making it open-ended where you could go till midnight.
Okay, that's fair.
I think Commissioner Surratt had a question.
yeah, I'm just curious if we can differentiate between kind of the weekdays versus weekends.
Yeah.
Because I think if we do that, 6 to 9 o'clock on a weekday makes sense.
Right.
Could it go a little bit later on a weekend? I think that's a little more common. And so if we can find something within that, I think hopefully we can find a happy medium there.
I was just wondering, sorry, I was just wondering, is there a way to operate with an earlier weekend end date? Because in my mind, if you tell somebody they gotta be out of there by 9 o'clock, they sort of straggle. And by the time they actually get outside, it might be 9:30, 10 o'clock, and they're still in a happy mood and they're still talking and they're standing out by their car. And an old woman like me is going to be listening. It's like, but it's on the weekend. You want people to have a good time, but it can sort of run far beyond what the posted closing time is because
I was just borrowing a little bit of more time, because sometimes you do have to move. But for the most part, I usually have Cleveland Heights Police Department, and they escort the people out of there.
Mhm.
So it really hasn't been a problem. This one particular, and out of the 14 years, this one particular event that took place, it was going very smoothly. And hey, they got down the street and they did what they did.
Yeah, I think I would support Commissioner Surratt's suggestion of maybe a bifurcated hours of operation schedule that spoke to the weekday typical operations, which seemed to be right, but I mean in the staff recommendations, that seemed to be more able to be controlled, and you really want the leeway for the weekends so that you don't get in trouble with complaints or
Right.
violations and
Right.
you're outside of the conditional.
Right. But like I
permit.
said, for the most part, the 14 years, it's been no problem because I really don't like violence. And I
Oh.
try to control as much as I can. However, I'm just one person and I put everything in place to make sure that things happen. But things happen. And unfortunately, they're happening more and more. So that being said, I myself would not be scheduling anything really late, just for safety,
See it being a
But-
one-off sort of situation where.
Yeah, because right now, and the gun control is just it's out of control. People are out of control. So that being said, what happens is what predicts or what is the current change of events through society and what's happening. We see it and we hear it on the news all day long. It's out of control right now. So for me, it don't look like anytime soon that I would be having any late events anyway. Most of the things that I would do on the weekend, when I'm tutoring from 7 to 12, anything after that, because once I tutor the children in there with Ohio Learning, I have them there, and then once they're gone, I don't think children need to be in the presence of other adults anyway. I'll try to keep them safe. So that would probably lend me to 1 to maybe 5 or 6 for whatever may take place. I basically don't plan on staying up to 12, 1 o'clock in the morning anyway. So no, I'm just setting the time because things can happen. That's all. It's a precaution.
Well, let's put something out there. Would you be comfortable if we were to have as number 3 on the conditional use permit, the hours of operation are to be limited to Monday through Thursday, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday through Sunday. Well, Friday, 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. because I understand you're going to have to operate the daycare, and then Saturday and Sunday, 7 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Say that again.
Monday through Thursday, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Okay.
Monday through Thursday.
Mhm.
Friday, 6 a.m. start because you have your daycare, but going until 11 p.m. because it is a weekend
So it's
night.
another week. Okay.
And Saturday through Sunday, 7 a.m. start, which is what you said you do on
Right.
the weekends, to 11 p.m. close.
No, that's
Comfortable with that?
yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
You have a question?
Sure.
I'm struggling with concurrent activity, and capacity.
That's where I want to go next. Okay.
And then also the question, live entertainment.
Apparently, that's what they're saying. My concern is
Noise.
Was that for me to hear? Because I didn't understand.
Well, I think the noise ordinance is one. The noise ordinance, I think, is 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. I once had construction next door, so I looked into this very carefully while I was studying for the LSAT or the bar. That was not fun. So 9 p.m. But that's only, I mean, that would be if there's a noise issue, they could call noise can be handled as a noise ordinance, police issues outside of a conditional use permit. I think this is about operation, like can they be open and operating?
And I
Right.
think that's my struggle is with having the uncertainty of private events and capacity up to over 300. I'm still.
Well, let's talk about capacity. I have a thought there also, and let's see if that could be amenable to the applicant. And
So if I understand your concern, would it be allayed with the building can be open from 6 to, let's say, 11 on the weekends, but the music might need to stop by 9?
right. And
Or any loud enough music that
Right,
could
and I-
reverberate throughout the residential
And I-
area.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but you can't hear anything in that building. That building
So-
is sound.
Propose something that could be interesting.
well, that's what I'm saying. I think it's cared for by number 4, and also the noise ordinance separately, which is always, that can be invoked regardless of hours of operation. But on the capacity, so this is what I'd like to suggest, and you'll let us know if you're amenable. I think we'd like to, what I'm proposing is to add a condition, and I think probably we can make it 10 to make it easy unless the law department thinks it should go somewhere else. But that capacity for capacity, and I'm open to suggestions or changes, but capacity for social or non-daycare events should be limited to 50 people. Would that be amenable to you?
Yeah, that's fine. And if there should be like a circumstance that might arise, I can come back to you guys and maybe say, hey, listen, there's going to be maybe 75 people for this particular one. Would that be okay with you?
So the conditional use permit doesn't work like that. It's a static condition. So you would be limited in perpetuity to 50 people. But that's the purpose of this, is to ensure that the use is consistent over time. And that's why that's why we're trying to, that's why we're having this conversation, to make sure that we, come to an agreement that's good for the neighbors, but also works for the use you have intended.
To be all fair, the neighbors don't hear anything. I've been there for 14 years. I have not had one complaint. The neighbor next door to me, when I come in early in the morning, he's waiting. It's more partying that they can hear on that street. When I come in the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock, it's a lot going on.
Right. No,
This building is like a bunker. You hear nothing in that building.
No, I understand that, but when we talk about capacity, these are the amount of people that are going in and out of the building, the possibility for people to not behave, while they're leaving, which is precisely, the event that brought us here tonight. So I'm sorry. Did you have a comment or?
If it's 75.
Okay.
is What you think you need max.
Yeah.
Well, I think staff has a thought.
Yeah, the social event capacity would have to be reflected in the parking plan as well. So she would have to show management of parking for 50 to 75 attendees if that were the case.
Okay.
Do this by granting a conditional use permit for that number of people, and she would have a certain amount of time to put the plan to us.
No, we need to have that plan up front, because once she leaves the space out, people aren't going to cancel.
No, but I
I'm sorry.
that's
The parking plan is supposed to be in place up front as part of the conditional use permit. It's a condition of approval. So it has to be in place once that number is determined. So if the maximum number you could have at an event is 75, then we need a parking plan as to how you would park for 75 people coming to your event.
On exhibit, I believe the questions were K through J, A through J, or something along those lines. And I proposed that I also have a signature from the ward leader for East Cleveland School that they permitted me to use the parking lot.
And that's good to hear, but you didn't submit that to us, so we weren't aware of that. So it would be helpful for you to tell us that and how many cars you will be allowed to use, park in there and when. So it would be helpful for us to have that document.
Right. And so I think what we're saying here is that we may be comfortable with a limit of 75 and we can put that in the conditional use permit, but that will mean that your parking plan has to reflect how you're going to accommodate 75 people parking. So we're tying the thread, we're threading this all together for you.
Okay. Yes, I did put the proposal out. If you want to tie it because of the understanding that it has to be on here to 50 people, then so be it. But when I do get that, and I do have the one Ward 4 with the signature allowing me to use the parking. It is at the building.
I think we're asking you to tell us, which I think you're doing.
Right. I will come back to you with the parking proposal.
And do you feel comfortable with all of the conversations you've been having with East Cleveland and the parking that you have available on the street and your 3 spaces, that if we were to grant a maximum event number of 75 people, that there would be adequate parking and you would be able to provide that parking plan to the city to reflect 75 people? That's what we're asking.
Yeah, I would be very comfortable with that. I did propose too, the parking area at the building. From the parking to the apron, I'd say maybe 30 feet or whatever. And I'm looking at the driveways in the area. And the driveways go much further back than my parking. I would like to be able to pave over that. And
that's a different.
I know.
Well, let me ask staff, if for some reason, let's say we grant 75 and we grant the parking reduction and you quickly work with the applicant to put a parking plan in place. If for some reason staff takes issue with the parking plan, can't we come back next month and amend the conditional use permit down to 50? You see me trying to get this done tonight.
I do see you trying to get that done. Staff is a little bit reluctant to commit to 75 because of the residential neighborhood and knowing just even around schools, how people have concerns about when schools let out and that number of people come out and they're parking and the noise.
Yeah.
And because you forget you're having a good time or you're talking to your friends and the lights if it's night, and then you have your car doors slamming and radios blasting. So it's just.
I'm a little too old. But I hear what you're saying. I understand that. But at the same time, I did present options where the people can park. I did present that and remind you that we're talking after the children are long gone.
Sure. But
Monday through Thursday,
We're just talking mainly about your events parking, but so we need to understand, you said you were going to look into doing a couple different things.
Right.
And we didn't receive that document to see what you were able to accomplish. We don't have the document like you just mentioned that the school district signed off on you being allowed to use their parking lot. So we don't have that document.
Okay.
And that, I don't know how many places there are in that parking lot. That might be more than enough to solve the whole question. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they may be saying you can use 10 spaces and that's a much different story too. So it's hard for staff to react when we don't know what we're dealing with. Sorry.
Well, let me ask the opposite question. If we were to grant a conditional use permit today with a event occupancy limit of attendee limit of 50, and the applicant was to come back to staff at some point in the future with a parking plan that would accommodate 75, we could also amend the conditional use permit up.
Sure, you're right. And a conditional use permit can be amended, upon request and additional evidence presented to you
Okay.
for review.
Is it possible to bifurcate the occupancy as well from weekdays to weekends? Because that could address some of the concerns that you had about the children in school.
Well, I mean, I think, yes, the answer is yes, we likely could. I think we could do what we see fit. But I think given the lack of clarity on the parking might be more appropriate, I guess, at this point to start low. And then if things develop in a positive way, then we can always amend it. Yeah, did you?
I have a question.
Sure.
Does anybody else on the commission have a concern about going beyond 9 o'clock?
On the weekends?
On the weekends. I mean, it seems staff has a concern about that because of the neighborhood going beyond 9 o'clock. And so.
Does staff have?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you, Mike.
You have a concern going beyond 9 o'clock?
On the weekends?
Some.
I just have one question that I want to be clear on.
Is your mic on?
Oh,
No, you do.
it is on.
Just closer.
Yeah. Currently, the old conditional use permit is in effect.
Yes.
You are having kids in daycare right now? Okay. So we not stopped from doing business.
That's correct. Yeah.
Most business.
So,
Okay.
so he was saying currently you're still able to do your child daycare.
Well, things have been put on hold. You guys put everything on hold. So currently I'm not making any money.
I think that might be a misunderstanding. Legally, the current conditional use permit is in place. It has not been revoked because we have not revoked it.
That was my understanding, but my understanding was that if I was to do anything, that I would be breaking the law. So I don't see your legal counsel here today, but he should have explained to you that the uses that were allowed in the conditional use permit that's in place are able to continue. It was social events and the hours of operation outside what was in, and we don't have that anymore, I think, in our packet. So, but that aside for a second, are you saying that because you'd like to continue this till next month? Or
I just want to make sure that the child daycare is not in jeopardy here, has not been stopped.
not by any action of the planning or the
daytime
city?
stuff.
It has been stopped because they did not give me, I paid for the certificate and they did not give it to me because they said it was contingent on me coming here. So therefore, I don't have any children in there because, I do abide by the law. And so all things have just been halted.
That is, you're saying certificate of occupancy, that's from the building department, correct? That's
what I was told.
related to, but not exactly the conditional use permit. Okay, that's outside our purview.
Which I didn't understand that. I didn't understand that at all, but I tried to abide by that.
Sure, we appreciate that.
I do have a 5-star daycare.
That's not easy.
No, it's not.
I have a lot of kids in preschool. The 5-star is not easy. Yeah. This is the notice that was given to the applicant. Here's what I'd like to suggest. And I am open to opposition, agreement, or amendments. I'd like to suggest that we adopt the staff recommendation as listed on the screen and in our packets with the following changes. That the hours of operation are, as I proposed before, and again, I'm open to amendments if the other commissioners feel strongly. 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. on Friday, and 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. And then adding a 10th condition that, a 10th, condition, yeah. A 10th requirement that attendees at any social event at this property be limited to a maximum of 50 people. Any concerns, changes?
Outside of education. Previous ones are education classes.
I mean, what if we, that's a good question. What if we said any events outside of the daycare use?
What about the letter F in the
I mean, I think,
adaptive?
I think, yeah. I mean, I guess that I'm comfortable that there's no, that this is being used. I feel from what the applicant has shared, the type of events that are happening outside of the daycare operational use are no different, with the exception of a wedding, but even a repast, which I understand is a bereavement, post-funeral gathering, is not really anything different from what we'd see like at the use of a library meeting space or other schools, the Coventry, what was in that building. I mean, the wedding is really the only type of event that I think is outside of what we've seen in other single family, conditional use permitted spaces. So, I mean, and I'll raise that question in addition, and maybe there's no, maybe we say no weddings are permitted. I don't know. I don't know if we've ever been that specific before in the uses, which is why I think to Jessica's question, how do we couch a attendee limit? I don't want to call it occupancy limit because I don't think we can limit the occupancy if that's a legal, building permit thing. But I do think that even if it was a wedding, and I'm just thinking out loud with all of you, an attendee limit of 50 people to me is still a small social event that I don't see as different in its essential use than a small nonprofit fundraiser of 50 people that would be in a community space in a single family district. But I'm open to
I have a question.
disagreement and amendments.
Can I pose a question? Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
I give festivals for the community. And usually, most of the time, I have the police department there and it's outside. And so would that be 50 people for that
Yes.
as well? But
Outside and inside the property is the
Yeah.
same, is it not?
yeah, but there's a lot more people because then I also have vendors there. So it's basically
It's going to be walk up.
section off from the property, from the front of the property for Caledonia, and then where the parking lot ends on Dresden. That's usually section off. However, they do have a roundabout there now.
Do you mean like a street fair?
Yeah, that's basically what I do, a festival for the community.
Well, the street fair, okay, back to you, Lee. Street, I know that the city permits the closure of streets, right, for street fairs, but that would not be tied to a conditional, that's not tied to a particular property. So when you do that, would your intention be to go through the street closure process at the city to?
Always get a permit, and the police always.
So that would be
bring their
separate.
phones.
Okay, that's separate. So that's separate. That doesn't have to do, that is okay.
Just checking.
Yeah. Oh, no, okay. We had a moment there. We were all getting a little nervous. Okay. Good. We're back on track.
May I ask a
Okay.
question
Yes.
of the applicant? How long have you been closed?
3 months, I suppose, since they started this whole thing, because I was told that if I do anything, I can go to jail. And I said, well, wait, hold up. I don't even have a parking ticket.
So the children who were daycare participants had to find someplace else to be, or they just weren't getting daycare. Is that correct?
Yeah, I had one child there. I have not been bringing any other children on board.
Okay.
Well, and just to be clear, this is the notice which we've been passing around on this side, but it only says that the event party use has to be discontinued. So that
Right. And I think the question came up last month, and it's regrettable that it was not clear, either in the way the question was posed or in the way the answer was received. But I think maybe where I am is applicants should define their business. And I sort of feel like we're describing things in which we'd be comfortable with the way your business operates, but I don't know if that's the way you want your business to operate. So if you're comfortable with sort of marketing the recreational part or the social events as smaller events, 50 or less, then can you do that? If you feel like you're going to be getting more like 75 to 100, then that's a different business plan that you have. And then you, I think, would need to discuss that with staff for the parking and the ways that would affect your conditional use permit in a residential district.
well yes, but I do think my impression from the conversation we've had now is that the applicant is saying that she is comfortable with limiting to 50. She has said that there may be a possibility she would need 75, but we are saying if that is the case, we need an adequate parking plan in place, and that will come back to us for a future potential amendment and consideration by the commission.
So, and I guess maybe my question to you is, are you comfortable with that? Or do you feel like 40% of the time I'm going to be in violation of the conditional use permit? Maybe that's what I'm not clear on.
I'm not pretty much clear on that either. I don't want to be in violation of anything. I did try to, on the end of the A3, okay, I did follow the A3 assembly. I did follow that, and I tried not to go out of any of those guidelines. However, then you're looking at the zoning. It was brought to my attention that you're based on the zoning. I was going to the state codes, the building codes, making sure that I didn't violate any of those building codes, okay? With that being said, if everything is based on the one family dwelling, I get that. And I never had a issue with the residents there on my behalf, but I've had issues with the residents attacking me. Parking in my parking spots. When I would leave out the country every August, I would come back, my building looked like a dumping zone. They would have parties all night long. Okay. I don't condone any of that. I respect people to the utmost because I want to be respected. So I treat people the way I want to be treated. That being said, is that community is rough. That street is very rough. I had to endure a lot coming in for those 14 years. Violated to.
Yes.
So I'm saying to you, I respect the community more than the community respects me, and I'm quiet.
So here's what we're gonna do. I've never done this before. Let's see if this works. But what I'd like to do is take the proposed.
Edit it right now.
Oh no, that's not what I want.
Oops.
Okay. How do I want to copy this.
Yeah, you got.
Oh, what'd I do? See?
Want to help her get to
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna copy this. Do we have Word? Does the city
there
provide
is.
you guys Word? Okay,
There you go.
just checking.
It'll be easier for you to do it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
No, and of course it didn't actually copy, so
You
let's.
just have to page down on your Word document.
Okay. I want you to just see, we're all going to look at the same thing together. And then actually, we should do this previously because we've been writing it down and handing it to the law department. But we can do this. All events outside of what is the daycare, childcare?
And I think childcare or youth activities, I think is that what she said previously that she was allowed?
Sorry. Drafting while you all watch me is not easy.
I think
How does that look, Lee?
if she asked, I would ask. Were you trying to use the same language as in her current conditional
Yes.
use? Okay.
Yes.
Brooke has it, so she'll tell you what that is because it's just a little bit different.
Yeah, it says educational and recreational classes. And before and after school tutoring programs.
Well, that doesn't include daycare.
But I would include daycare.
Yeah. Okay. So those are the 3 already permitted uses. Okay, excellent. All right, so I know that's not going to help. So this would be on the conditional use permit that you will be granted will have all of this just as it is right here. And so that's what I want to make sure to Commissioner Miles' point that we're all on the same page. So the only thing that we've changed, in addition to what staff had recommended to us, are the times, and that's what we've discussed here. And, that's with the knowledge that if there's a noise ordinance issue or if neighbors are complaining, that may come back to us and we are empowered to limit it in the future. And then on your end, similarly, if you feel that you need a maximum attendee number of greater than 50, and you can demonstrate in the parking plan that can be accommodated through the efforts that you're making, then we can come back here and similarly amend the conditional use permit.
And if I may, I think it would be useful if we have the parking, if we say 30 days, if we could put a date in there. That way we can bring that back to Planning Commission next month and they can see that we did indeed create the parking plan.
Well, wouldn't 30 days of approval, you mean this would go past our next month meeting?
Well, I'm saying I think if we give a definite date, because if she doesn't, if any of these conditions are violated, then the conditional use is not in effect. And we want her to be able to operate cleanly quicker rather than later. So we want to try to schedule time with you to get this parking plan completed within the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks. If we could get it done before February, what's the meeting date? Before February 12th, so we could bring it back to Planning Commission just as an update to this meeting and let them know that we were able to create an approvable parking plan. And if we're not, then we'll have to have a discussion about what Planning Commission wants to do.
Did you want to? No. Okay. So what date is staff, what date is staff recommending that we insert there? Today is the 8th, so 2 weeks would be, should we say January 24th, which is 2 weeks and 2 days?
With that,
Can I just submit that to you? Coming back, this is.
No. We can. We don't have to necessarily be here, but we want to work with you so that if we have questions, we want to know that, you and Brooke and I are all work together to get this resolved so that it's finalized and it can get approved. That's our intent by putting a date on it, not necessarily having to come back down to City Hall or this meeting. If we can get to an approvable parking plan, then this condition will be met. We just want to get that done sooner than later.
Okay, well, today being Wednesday, perhaps I will bring this to you tomorrow.
So
provided I feel good.
So if we would say like a 2-week time frame, which would be like January 24th, you feel like that's workable and we should be able to get that done?
I have one of the letters at the building. I'm just waiting for the CEO.
It sounded to me that the applicant feels comfortable getting the parking plan in quickly. So let's do that.
You've been reading my face. I'm
Yes.
concerned about the timing
Yes,
of it.
yes.
I just want to get back to what I need to do to make a living.
So, yeah, well, that was going to be my question is, like, can she still operate the daycare now? Like, cause
Yes.
that part, you can, and then we want to make that clear to you. So
Yeah,
you
she's
could have
always been
children.
able to operate the daycare. We only asked her to discontinue the use of a party and event center.
Right. And I just wanted to make sure that was clear to the applicant.
Okay. I'm going to entertain a motion. Seems we are in
Can I ask
consent.
a question?
Yes.
Should I wait for more discussion on what's in these conditions? Until after? I still have a question about the time.
No, we should do that now before we,
My question is for Ken, you brought up 10 o'clock for the weekend. Are you comfortable with 11?
I did.
I don't think I said it.
no.
Well,
I
you
think I-
suggested it by, a different time.
Later. Yeah. I'm comfortable with 11.
It's just-
Holy. But I'm gonna-
Okay.
Be rolled into the
Sunday through Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, is that amenable?
I'll
Yeah.
be fine with that.
Okay.
And
What are we doing?
Sunday like the other days.
Well, then we should just, are you able to, 6 a.m.? Yes, that's what, okay. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Madam Chair, while we're wordsmithing,
Oh, yeah, Friday and Saturday. Yes. Yes.
we need to define what those other uses are. I mean, social events or, we need to, there needs to be some term that falls within that category that, because that's where the F that we're finding it's similar to uses already permitted in an adaptive reuse. So
Does that need another condition or does that
I
need?
think we would just up above that we were permitting, I think that's where we're going to just have to say that we're modifying it to allow, in addition to the youth and recreation, education, childcare, tutoring, also permitting blank use, if it's some specific event uses. I don't know if you have a term.
So like to include social and community events?
I spelled all of that out on the sheet.
Okay.
And that was presented last month.
So our legal counsel is recommending that we should also include daycare as in that language of additional, because it wasn't specifically
Oh.
called out in the original conditional use permit, just so that it's clean and clear.
That sounds good to me. I'm making it consistent. All those classes. Okay. Comfortable? Okay, I shall now entertain a motion.
Can I ask one question, please? I was required to get 2 license permits. One
That's
for
housing
daycare
and
one for the building, which is the community, the childcare, daycare, that's educational. I don't understand why I needed to do 2.
okay, I'm going to have to refer you back to the building department.
Yeah,
Which is
those
outside
licenses
our
are done through the building, and so we can talk to you about that, but that's not something the planning commission has purview over, and that's not my field of expertise either, but we can make sure that we have the right folks in the room to talk to you about it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so now I'd like to see if we have a motion.
Madam Chair, if I may remind you, we did not ask if there was any public comment in
Oh,
this case.
there. Okay. Is there any public comment in this case? Nope. Okay.
Thank you. Just
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it. So move. And what exactly are you moving?
The approval of the new
Amending the applicant's
with the 10 conditions recommended by planning.
and modifying the parking. Here, we're gonna,
If I'd had my,
here, this is, do you need me to zoom in? Hold on. Oh, that's way too far. Okay, no, that's way too. Well, it's like Goldilocks. Okay, there we go. We want to approve, the motion is to this with the 10 conditions.
yes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, congratulations. You, as of this moment, this is your conditional use permit. And I don't know if staff can print from here, but it might be helpful. I saved this to your desktop.
you can say, thank you. Thank you.
Give this
Um,
back. You, staff is available. Obviously, they're going to follow up on the parking plan. They will help you navigate the questions around the building department, and they will make sure that you have a copy of the new conditional use permit, so you have all that information. And good luck. Thank you for all you do for the community, and you do not have to stay because we have 3 other cases to take care of. So, yeah, our pleasure.
Good night.
Have a good night. Thank you. All right, let me find my agenda so we know where we're going next. I think we're going to Park Synagogue next. Okay,
We are indeed.
on the other side of the city. Okay. All right, project number 25-01. This is, well, we have two Park Synagogue conditional use permit items, and then we have the zoning map. So we'll just, staff, you'll just walk us through what we're considering here.
So this is project number 25-1. They're requesting a conditional use permit for the adaptive reuse of a non-residential building in a residential district. And the subject property is located on Mayfield Road, and it's the first lot east of the Ivydale and Mayfield Road intersection. The property is about 8 acres in area. And the property is zoned A single family and is surrounded by single family homes also zoned A single family. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit in order to execute an adaptive reuse of an existing non-residential building in a residential district. The applicant would like to adapt the site from a place of worship to become a community arts center. The renovated synagogue will include a variety of art experience classrooms for instruction consisting of painting, sculpturing, woodworking, media arts, creative writing, theater, and spaces for special needs. The synagogue will also have religious services and celebrations on high holidays. The synagogue's assembly spaces will provide performing arts instruction as well as special events for the community. The lobbies and passages will become rotating art galleries for students and instructors' artwork. The building will primarily be used on weekdays with some evening and weekend classes. Students and staff will enter the building through the school wing entry. The applicant expects daily student attendance to be about 50, with about 4 to 6 faculty and staff members. Student performing arts events and gallery exhibit openings will take place in the temple, ballroom, chapel, and auditorium in evenings and on weekends, and will consist of about 50 to 150 attendees. Daily parking for students, faculty, and staff will be located behind the school wing. The applicant expects to host special community events such as weddings, funerals, parties, and high holiday ceremonies a few times a month, which may consist of 150 to 700 attendees. Attendees for special events will utilize the main entry and drop-off points as well as the chapel and new bridge entry points. Parking for special events will be located at the temple parking lot near the daycare and various other parking spaces throughout the site, with potential off-site parking and shuttle arrangements taking place as needed for large gatherings. A parking demand study has been performed that indicates that the proposed parking supply will meet the project parking demand. And these are the standards under which an adaptive reuse of existing non-residential buildings in a residential district can be approved. A parking study and traffic impact study have been conducted and have determined that the present amount of parking access and access drives currently being provided should be sufficient for the described uses and activities. The applicant is working with the city on a development plan to ensure that future uses are also compatible and appropriate. And planning staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit to allow a community arts center and special event space with the following conditions. This use shall not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other properties in the immediate vicinity or create a nuisance for adjacent properties. The applicant shall work with staff to resolve any complaints from neighbors. The applicant shall obtain all required approvals from the Architectural Board of Review, Board of Zoning Appeals, and Landmark Commission. The applicant shall adhere to all regulations and permitting requirements for the sale and/or on-site consumption of alcoholic beverages, and all required construction and installation of the use should be completed within 36 months of Planning Commission approval.
Thank you. So I think what my understanding is, this is transferred owners. It's going to be a different conditional use. And actually we have two cases because these are now two separate lots.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So this is pretty straightforward is what I'm understanding. Okay. Any questions for staff? No, because we already heard a lot about the project. Okay, is there a motion? Anyone? Oh, now Mike, they elected you, so go ahead.
I will make the motion on project number 25-01 to approve Park Synagogue, a single family review of the conditional use permit for adaptive reuse of a non-residential building in a residential district for the codes listed on the sheets that we've got, including the staff recommendations of these 5 conditions.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No opposed, no abstentions, passes unanimously. And we'll move on to project number 25-02.
All right, this is project number 25-2. They're requesting a conditional use permit. Sorry about that. This is a revised conditional use permit to operate the mikveh as an accessory building rather than it's a part of a separate site.
Okay. Because this was part of the original conditional use permit for the entire property.
Right. So originally it was an accessory use of the synagogue, and now it's a freestanding mikvah. So it's getting its own conditional use permit.
Okay.
And the subject property is located on Mayfield Road, and it's the second lot east of the Ivydale and Mayfield Road intersection. And this is also zoned A single family, surrounded by A single family houses. The applicant is requesting a revised conditional use permit in order to preserve the on-site mikveh. The mikveh was constructed prior to the zoning code requirement that any new place of worship receive a conditional use permit. However, Code Section 1171.02 states that a lawfully existing use that would be eligible for a conditional use permit in the district in which it is located shall not be a non-conforming use, but without further action shall be deemed to have obtained a conditional use permit. A new conditional use permit shall be required, however, for any change, modification, enlargement, or alteration of such use, site development conditions, or signs. Because the synagogue is undergoing a change from a place of worship to an educational use, the mikvah's conditional use permit requires a revision, as it's now the primary use on its own parcel and is now no longer an accessory use to a religious building. And the Charlotte Goldberg Community Mikvah was constructed in 2000 and is open to individuals from all sects of Judaism for personal rituals. The mikvah provides a safe space to express Jewish spirituality through immersion, to mark a milestone, celebrate an important life cycle event, grieve losses, etc. It is supported by a consortium of area synagogues and individuals in the community. The mikvah currently has no full-time employees, as Park Synagogue custodians service the building, and the visiting religious leaders of the synagogue consortium put on the events. Off-street parking for the building is located along the east drive of the property. The building operates during regular business hours and occasionally on weekends. And these are the adaptive reuse standards. Planning staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit to allow a community arts center and special space with the following conditions. This use shall not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other properties in the immediate vicinity or create a nuisance for adjacent properties. The applicant shall work with staff to resolve any complaints from neighbors. The applicant shall obtain all required approvals from the Architectural Board of Review, Board of Zoning Appeals, and Landmark Commission. The applicant shall adhere to all regulations and permitting requirements for the sale and/or on-site consumption of alcoholic beverages, and all required construction and installation of the use shall be completed within 36 months of Planning Commission approval.
Okay. I'm just noting that there were 3 extra conditions that are not on the slide or in the staff report.
Oh, sorry about that. I didn't mean to include those.
Okay. So these 2, okay, that makes more sense. Just these 2. All right. That's good to know. Then I just checking in, this was Mike's suggestion, but any members of the public are here to speak on these cases or just here with us? That's fine. We're happy to have, okay, that's fine. Okay, any questions for staff on this? Nope. Okay, is there a motion?
I got it.
Okay.
Project number 2502, Parks Synagogue Mitzvah. Additional use permit for the adaptive reuse of a non-residential building in a residential district to enable the continued use of the mikveh as a primary use rather than accessory use, with the 2 recommendations being included.
Great. Is there a second? Second from Commissioner Horowitz. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions? Passes unanimously. And now I'm realizing we should have done that at the outset of the meeting. Sorry, it's very. We usually switch this around so we can handle the fast-moving cases up front. Now we have a proposed zoning map amendment referral. Here I am, hoping that you have the slide that tells us the process of how this flows from council to us and back again.
So, right. So let me just, staff should just start.
Absolutely.
Sorry, just jump right in. So this is a referral from City Council for Planning Commission to provide a recommendation back to them. So the request is to rezone the Park Synagogue site from it's currently a portion of it is multifamily up at the top, and then the southern end of it is a single family. So here's the process for where we are. So this ordinance for a zoning map amendment, a request was made by the property owners to City Council. City Council introduced that in forms of legislation on December 9th and referred it to Planning Commission for further consideration. Planning Commission can consider this ordinance. It was ordinance 245-2024, which you did get a copy of in your packet. And if we are comfortable, you can move on that tonight and make a motion of whatever your recommendation is. If we want to wait till February, I need to tell you that we will have to ask council for some additional time because Planning Commission has between 30 and 60 days to respond, and 60 days would be the Friday before our February meeting. So if we're not comfortable tonight, we just have to send a message to City Council that we need an additional few days. But anyway, so that's where we are tonight, is at this Planning Commission consideration. Then it will go back to council, and it may get referred to a committee of council. That's up to council to decide. There will be a public hearing held by council on whatever the recommendation is, or the zoning amendment at that point in time. And then the notices, the property hearings for the zoning map change are sent out by the clerk of council to everybody. And then action would be taken after the public hearing, and they would either adopt or deny that zoning request.
So we are voting to recommend the approval or recommend the non-approval.
Right, or recommend a modification. If you'll remember, when we considered a zoning map change on South Taylor Road, we did do an amended zoning map. We tweaked it a little bit. So here again is the zoning, the current zoning, and you can see the properties in question outlined in that blue area. So currently you can see right along Mayfield Road, that's a multifamily district, and then the balance of the property is a single family. What they're asking is for to be an S2 mixed use district. And the purpose of the S2 mixed use district is to provide for modern and imaginative architectural design and site arrangement and city planning for specific areas which offer a unique development opportunity in Cleveland Heights. The applicant described the uniqueness of this site because of the current natural resources are there, the current historic synagogue, which they're trying to preserve, as well as it happens to have a portion of the Dugway Brook that is an open stream along there. So, and it's 28 acres. So that's part of their rationale as to why they feel like it meets that definition of being a unique site. And then the intent is for this to be an S2 plan development, which the objectives there are to offer incentives for either high density commercial and or residential mixed use in areas that have special characteristics or redevelopment opportunities. 2, to ensure that that density occurs in a unified manner in accordance with the development plan. And 3, to encourage sustainable development practices. This is almost a 2-step process. So tonight we're just looking at the zoning code itself. Next month, we anticipate the applicant will be back and we will have a work session to, if should zoning move forward, we would begin working on what that development plan guidelines would be. So similar to the top of the hill, if you remember, there were design guidelines that dictated the density, the height, materials, what type of signage they should have. So those whole parameters of development issues that would become the rules that anything happening within this property would have to follow. So that's step 2. Tonight's really just the question of, is this a zoning change that Planning Commission is comfortable with and wants to make a recommendation, or do you want more time?
So just to be clear, if we do an S2, that allows us to dictate the overlay, which is
correct. There'll be some portions, yes. The S2 does.
We talked about this last time.
The development plan is something that we would do a working session with you to first. Staff would take a stab at it, and we're working closely with the applicant too to kind of provide some outline. But then we would come in and actually work with you to say, here's where we are. We feel strongly, as does the applicant, that one of the unique features of this site is the natural resources of the site. And so we would want that development plan to have something in there talking about those natural resources and how we preserve them, including the stream and, of course, the historic building, which we know the current owners value because they're going through historic tax credits. But by having it listed in our development plan, it becomes a rule of that development plan. And any future owner would have to come back to us should they want to change any of those rules or do something that's outside of what that development plan calls.
Can I just ask you had on a previous slide, like yes, here. So I think like the difference, the S2 allows us to do the overlay, but like if they were to do like a C2X multiple use or something like that, then that is without the overlay, right? Like that's the distinction.
Correct. The S2 specifically calls out the ability to do what they call an S2 development plan. So really imaginative there.
But it's for unique areas where
correct.
We want to have a little bit more oversight.
Correct. And for unique arrangements. Yeah. So, if it was just a C2X, for example, we would expect then this maybe to have, more of a grid-like pattern of roads or more streets so that everybody had access and they would have to have code-conforming parcels that meet, those.
This gives us more flexibility and also more oversight.
Correct, because once that development plan is adopted, then any changes to that, anything that wants to be completed outside that development plan has to be brought back to Planning Commission for review and approval. So, and we do know from our preliminary review with the applicant that their intention would be they're going to have the overall development plan, but then the development would actually happen in phases. So, but the guidelines would be written for the entire site, even though there's an understanding that there could be phased implementation of that development plan.
I think that's the right way to do this, forward thinking, but also, get it done at the beginning as opposed to having to do it piecemeal as we go through. Seeing nodding heads. Okay, any other questions for staff? Okay, so we need a motion to recommend that council approve the zoning change.
Correct.
Okay. Is there, oh, Mike is ready to go.
I'd like to
Do
make a
you,
motion.
Madam
Yeah.
Chair, I'm not sure if anybody's here that wants to
Oh.
comment, if you want to ask that question.
Anybody here? No? No? Okay,
Um,
wait 1 second. We need to, well, procedurally, we're going to need you to be sworn in by our assistant law director, and then we'll have you come up to the podium.
I can, if you're comfortable standing. Okay.
Do you swear or affirm to testify the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay. Just need your name and your address, and then. Oh, because that's not working, right? Okay, yes. No, not working. Okay.
The multifamily is along Mayfield. I believe the brook runs between,
That's that dark line, actually, I think is the brook.
yep. And
Yeah, there
so the proposal for the mixed use in the method that you're doing it is to make sure that that area can be preserved.
Well, this gives us,
Discussion.
yes, this part gives us, as part of the creation of the development plan, the ability to make such stipulations, or I think within the code allowances, right?
Right. And Madam Chair, there's the opportunity as we're creating those development plan rules and guidelines for there to be public input on
Yes.
what those rules are. So while we're having a work session on that, we would invite, the public with some comments to, weigh in at that time too about something specific if there's a specific concern.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, any questions? Oh, wait, we were about to do, I did this already. Motion or anybody else or no? Okay.
Okay, I will make a motion for project number 2503, the proposed zoning map amendment referral to City Council regarding the zoning map to rezone the former park synagogue parcel generally located between Mayfield Road and Newport High School Road between Compton and Ivydale Road. The review and recommendation for the code chapter.
To recommend that the council approve it.
Recommend that the council approve.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposition, abstentions? No, that passes unanimously. So that is good. I just want to note that council sent us something and we took care of it in a month, unlike some things we send the other way. That is all. No, just saying. But actually, that is my next question because staff report on planning activity. Is there anything for that agenda item?
I don't have anything right now to report, sorry.
So old business, I finally finished watching the city council meeting. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. You don't have to stay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I watched the city council meeting on Monday and I heard in passing, I watched it on 1.5 speed to make it go quicker. Sorry, guys. But I heard quickly in passing that our annual code changes with not including the houses of worship, something happened. I think President Kuda sent it to either planning us or planning committee. So I want to.
I do believe it's being sent back to us, but since that's just, is that correct? I believe
No,
I think that the
no.
the
zoning changes.
I believe that came back to it'll come back to Planning Commission
In February.
in February. It was, yes, because we couldn't put it on the agenda for tonight because
It was Monday.
Well, because it's not adequate public notice. I mean, even though we have discussed those amendments before in a public forum, it still needs to be on our agenda for us to consider it. So it will be on February's agenda.
Okay, so again, level setting. The zoning code changes from our December 2023 annual code review
Correct.
sat with the mayor for a year. And now that the mayor introduced it to council on Monday as a resolution, they approved it to come back to planning commission. We will have the opportunity to approve those changes. And is that the end of the line for those zoning code changes, or do they have to go back to council to be approved again?
They still have to go back to council because it's part of an ordinance
Fine. So we're anticipating a March,
implementation.
late February, early March approval of the zoning code changes. Okay. So yes, check. Hopefully. Now, houses of worship, the Director Zampt. I mean, I heard the last time I spoke to Director Zampt, the law department, and Lee, if you know, but I know Justin was handling this with the law director, that the law department was looking at like 1 or 2 final discrete questions to then clear it for posting on the website for a public, open to the public with a deadline of comment for, I think, 2 weeks is what Director Zampt and I talked about, at which point that would then go to council. So is there an update on whether the law department is finished with this yet?
There is not an update. I do not believe that they've completed with what they wanted to look at. So we are talking to them daily.
Okay. That's only somewhat reassuring considering this is going on almost 3 years of work. Okay. Well, that's the plan. If we can ever get it out of the law department, maybe Lee could convey the will and strong desire of the commission that this be ejected from legal review and onto the public website for public consumption. Okay. Is there everybody in agreement at this point? Yeah.
Just staying patient.
I'm not.
Yeah, that's kind of my question. Just based on the time, effort, resources used for this, when is, not just when can we expect it to move forward, but what is that limit of expectation? Not just for this, but any other proposed changes we make before.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a discussion that we've had before, which is, and frankly, to be very candid, I don't think we've always had this issue. I think this has been particularly acute in the last 2 to 3 years because our annual zoning code changes have been relatively quickly picked up prior to 2023. I mean, this is obviously something a little bit more extensive with houses of worship that I think we expected more scrutiny, but we also spent much more time going through it and making sure that we were very comfortable with the package that we were sending back to the administration and to council. So I think, I guess 2 things on this. One is that it has absolutely taken inordinately longer than we expected and with very little explanation from the administration, not council, but the administration as to why it was delayed. And we've pushed, thankfully this fall, we pushed for some answers and we did get a response from the law department that Eric Zampt, worked on. But I do think it's important to publicly register our concern. I also heard at the council meeting a lot of excitement about the ADUs. And my thought when I was listening to this public comment is that this is going to get also mired in, we can work quickly, but that doesn't necessarily ensure that the zoning changes will happen, on these big issues. So I think maybe to your point, it would be helpful to know, I know we have a long list of zoning changes that we want to work on, including the ADUs being a huge piece of that. It would be nice for the administration, and you all can decide if that includes the planning department, the law department, the mayor's office. It would be nice to have a sense of what the expectations are prior to us picking that up, because we certainly were not told that we were going to have to include houses of worship in this livable communities initiative. There was a work session that the mayor wanted that he didn't attend. That was supposed to be open to the public in the evening, but ended up being a 1:30 p.m. meeting. I mean, there's all these back and forths that have limited our ability to move this forward. So, and then I guess, the open question also is we didn't do a code review in December of 2024 because we were still doing 2023. So are we just waiting now?
If you recall, the last time we talked about this, we have a whole list of zoning initiatives, and some of that has been kind of pushed ahead because of just circumstances. So for example, the ADU zoning. And so there are some zoning changes, minor, but it's those major and development projects such as the one we're going through now that's going to be taking a lot of time and our attention. But we do have some zoning changes already started to review with you.
But you anticipate, I guess the planning department anticipates like the ADUs coming up this year as a separate.
We definitely do.
And then what about the resolution that we had passed in December to go to council, urging them to approve the zoning code changes and the houses of worship? Was that ever transmitted?
I believe that was transmitted. I apologize. I was on vacation those last 2 weeks in December, so I can't answer that directly. I'm not trying to be vague.
No, I know. Can you check on that, I guess, and also with the law department and just email out the commission where that resolution is? That was supposed to be our nudge. Okay. Any other concerns? No. New business? No.
Just that, start thinking about how, rules that you might think the S2 development on that site should include, or general, if you have general categories, and you want to share that with staff, we're more than happy to hear that so that we can have some sample language and regulations prepared for us.
Is there like a pre-read that you can send out to all of us?
We're actually in the process of trying to develop that. So we're looking at examples from a variety of places, but we just want to make sure we definitely hit the major topic areas like natural resources, which is a unique one for this site.
Can I just make one request? Can you send out the calendar to all of us again for 2025? Because Oh, even better. Okay. I'm always the one that's getting the calendar wrong, so I'm asking really for me, but helpful for other people. And then we have items already for next month on the agenda.
We definitely have the zoning. Were there new applications that came in?
I think there's only a reduction in parking.
Which is good. If we're going to be we're hoping that we will have information from the applicants that we can be doing a work plan. So having a lighter work agenda on other items would be useful to give us time to really dig in.
And once the zoning code changes go into effect, we won't even have the reduction of parking on our agenda anymore. We can move forward with alacrity. Okay. All right. With that, I adjourn. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time tonight.